Hi, Jeffrey. Welcome to the Integrative Health Coach Success Podcast.
Hi, Julia. I'm grateful to be here today. Thanks for having me.
Yes, we're grateful to have you. I can't wait for you to share with our listeners what you're currently doing in the health and wellness space and the vast knowledge that you have in your area of expertise. I think it's going to be incredibly valuable. So what I would love to do to start is, could you share with our listeners what you're currently doing in the health and wellness space? And then we'll back it up a little bit and kind of talk about how you got there.
Absolutely. So I am the founder of Love Energy Wellness, and we are a virtual wellness practice that helps people reclaim their energy and bring their performance to the next level.
That's great. Okay. So we know you're IHP level 1, level 2 certified. Tell me, have you always been in some sort of a health and wellness field? Did you do something else and make a career change? Kind of give us a little bit of the backstory.
Yeah, a little bit of everything. I was definitely not the healthiest individual for most of my life. And back in 2015, started dipping my toe in the health and wellness for my own personal reasons. I come from the construction industry and spent about 35 years in that industry as a master electrician here in Massachusetts. And I had my own electrical contracting business for over a decade, and then went to work for another company back in 2008 when the savings and loan industry crashed. And I had at that time 2 small children, another one on the way, and I needed to do something. So I went to work for an electrical contractor, and I was getting burnt out, as many people do. The construction industry is very grueling, especially in commercial construction, and very, very toxic. Physically toxic. Physical toxicities there with that construction environment, especially in those buildings in the demolition phase and even ground up phase when it's all new building materials. I actually get a lot of value out of one of your previous podcasts where you interviewed. I can't think of what her name was, but she came from the architecture industry and talked about, off-gassing in new homes. And, so that's huge in a new building. If you can just imagine that, the buildup of toxicities in a home scaled up by, what's an average house, 2,000 square feet. And now you're in a 100, 200, 300,000 square foot building. So many new building products in there. That being said, spending that many years in that industry just built up the toxicities and took its toll on my body. I had, numerous chronic health issues. I had disease. I had all kinds of problems, and I was just burnt out and sick and tired of being sick and tired. And my wife at the time had suggested that I go to a Tai Chi class because the instructor came from an athletic background. And she said, why don't you go see him and have him just teach you how to stretch so you can stop complaining all the time that you're so sore. So I did that. And lo and behold, he started teaching me Tai Chi because he came from, he was an athletic coach in the track and field space and knew a lot about nutrition. So he started teaching me nutrition. And so not only Tai Chi, but Qigong as well. And I know Dr. Cabral is a big advocate of Qigong. So the more that I practiced, the better I felt. And the better I felt, the more I wanted that feeling. So I kept asking myself, what else is possible? And, to go back even further, I had some other challenges. I can't say that the health struggles that I had were all from the construction industry. In my 20s, I struggled with drugs. In my 30s and 40s, I had my challenges with alcohol. And, the better I felt from Tai Chi class, and then I would, go back and have a cocktail or something after a class when I was having dinner, and I would feel worse. And I said, I just did this amazing thing for myself and my body and my mind with this practice. And now I'm counteracting that with, a drink or 2 or 3 or whatever the case may be. And so that had me transitioning, away from the bad habits and more towards the good habits. And asking, what else was possible led me down the path of other healing modalities. Then I ventured into massage therapy, and my massage therapist happened to be a chiropractor as well. So after the massage session, we would get a structural alignment, and that certainly helps. If somebody's body is out of line structurally, that is stealing their energy. And that's one of the starting points that I work with people. And one thing that he taught me was that muscle moves bone. So if somebody's just going for a chiropractic adjustment, and the bones not being, the muscles not being manipulated first, then that out of place muscle is just going to pull that bone back out of place in a short time. And it's probably why a lot of people say that, oh, once you start going to a chiropractor, you always have to go because of that, right? But if the muscle's getting moved into place, then the bone will stay into place as well. So, that's one of the, key factors that led to that. Now, in addition to that, this practitioner had some signage hanging on his wall, and it was some Japanese writing. And I said, Jim, what is that? And he said, that's Reiki. And I said, what the hell is Reiki? And so he gave me my introduction to Reiki and verbally described it. And I said, I got to try that. And that was my introduction to energy work. And it turns out that not only does he practice Reiki, but he also practices cranial sacral therapy along with somato emotional release. And that was just life-changing for me. And if any of the listeners are not aware of what CST is or SER, cranial sacral therapy and somato emotional release, that is working with an energy system in the body discovered by John Upledger. And this is a method discovered and created by John Upledger back in the 70s. And my practitioner, Jim, actually studied under John personally. And it's amazing for the energy systems in the body. It works on the chakras. It works on the cerebral spinal fluid and how that flows from the base of the spine up through the spinal cavity, around the brain and back down again. And that has a certain pulse to it. And if that pulse gets interrupted, that's basically an energy blockage. And that CST works amazing for that. And then the somato emotional release part of it is like a higher level of that modality. And what that is that when we have trauma in our lives, and trauma can be, physical abuse, verbal abuse. It could be something as simple as a car accident or a surgery, a divorce, loss of a loved one. That negative energy can get trapped in your body, in the cells of your body. And this healing modality, this SER, actually releases that. And it's a light touch therapy. So all the client really has to do is just, lay on the massage table and let the practitioner do the work around the body. And it's, it's non-invasive. It's very easy. Takes about an hour at the beginning, maybe 3 or 4 sessions in the course of, a month or 2 months. And the transformation is just amazing from that. So that really, between Tai Chi and Qigong, which are internal energy modalities of martial arts and exercise and traditional Chinese medicine, and then my introduction into, cranial sacral therapy, somato emotional release, Reiki, all that really got me interested in the energy aspect of that. And it's just been a learning journey and a progression of all these different modalities and experimenting with them and seeing the benefits of them and wanting to bring that to other people. And that's really what led me to, where I am today. Now, back to the construction world, I was introduced by a friend of mine she was a self-made millionaire. She created a software company called Turbo Law, and then eventually sold that software company for millions. So my friend Danny was a self-made millionaire, and I asked her one day, Danny, how did you do it? And she asked me. She said, do you really want to know? I said, yeah, I'm interested in this entrepreneurship thing. Like 10 years ago, I didn't even know what the word entrepreneur meant. And and she said, I got to ask you one question. I said, what? She said, are you ready? I'm like, what do you mean, am I ready? Ready for what? And she said, it's a long road. And I can show you the steps that I took and that I learned from my mentors to lead you down that path. And I said, yeah, definitely. I'm ready for this. So she led me down a progression. She was actually my first coach ever. And it's just an amazing journey she led me down. So what I did was I took what I had learned in 35 years of construction, and I wanted to package that up and bring it to the online space and teach other people how to, how to become better electricians, whether it was in the commercial industrial space or the residential space, but really focused on leadership and health and wellness, because I knew how toxic of an environment it was, and the steps that I took that helped me heal my body and start feeling good and get rid of things like asthma and seasonal allergies and chronic joint pain and back pain and things that people suffer with in the construction industry. And it just seemed like in my podcast that I had back then, for 2 years, the conversation always ended up in the health and wellness space, always talking about health and wellness and tips for wellness, and not so much the electrical part of it. And I just knew, listening to myself as I'm editing the podcast, that I could hear the energy change in my voice as I'm talking about construction and talking about health and wellness. And that tipped me off, is that was the direction that I should probably go into. So I started listening to podcasts on entrepreneurship. And one of the amazing podcasts that I still listen to this day was Entrepreneurs on Fire by John Lee Dumas. And I happened to hear Dr. Stephen Cabral on that podcast one day, and I was intrigued. So I jumped over to the Cabral concept and just started binging on the health and wellness with his podcast, along with other people like Sean Stevenson and Dr. Mark Hyman and all of those podcasts, and just really bringing it all together. And I knew that someday I would be in the wellness space, and it's fantastic that the wellness space, what was really inviting about it to me is that it's so collaborative, coming from an industry that was so competitive, and not just competitive between contractor to contractor, but competitive between employees within a single contractor. There was so much competition where everybody was out for themselves. And in the wellness space, everybody's out to help each other. And that's what was really, really inviting for me. And it just never really felt, after 35 years of doing something, realizing that, I just never felt 100% myself in that industry was, that was an alarm for me. And then noticing the feeling that I had in the health and wellness space, and just having those conversations, not just on the podcast, but with people and individuals, and helping them and creating resources and, things like that. And one of the biggest things for me was back in, I think it was 2016 or 17. I have 3 children. I'm a single parent of 3 teenagers. Went through probably the most amicable divorce in the history of mankind. It was, as traumatic as it was for us to separate. It was so easy for the transition. But one of the things that kept us in good communication, one of the many things, was that my oldest son was diagnosed with a JNA, a juvenile nasopharyngeal angiofibroma. Basically, it's a tumor that is very vascular in nature up against the skull base. And it was growing at such a rapid rate that they had to do almost emergency surgery. From when we discovered it, it was 2 weeks when he was in the surgery. And it was a long, grueling surgery. It was supposed to be 4 hours. It took 17 hours. He lost so much blood. They had to transfuse him. And it took him about 6 months to recover. And that really made me ask questions of, as an IHP nature, and I'm just naturally inquisitive. Why did he have this? And of course, the conventional medicine, team and system, they couldn't answer why. I would say, well, was it from EMFs because he's been holding an iPhone since he was 2 years old? No, it couldn't be from that. Well, could it be from processed foods because, he eats a really poor diet before we knew what a good diet was? No, it wouldn't be from that. And I just, I never ever believed them 100%. And I really think it was from a combination of things, but it took so long for him to recover that I felt helpless because I didn't know what I know now, and I didn't know how to help him. And they weren't able to get all the tumor out. And what happened was he had to heal from that, go for MRIs to monitor the tumor growth. And then 1 year later, he had to go for the second surgery. But we had the first surgery done at University of Massachusetts in Worcester. And after his surgery, that medical team, which was phenomenal, the talent that was there, as doctors typically do, they dispersed and went to other hospitals. And the head of ENT there, the ear, nose, and throat department, said, I suggest for your second surgery, you don't do it here because I don't have all the confidence in the new team that I did in the old team. So I suggest you either go to Boston or you go to Albany. So we chose Albany. Just because it was easier, and the talent there was amazing. It really was. But in the meantime, I was diving deep into health and wellness and how to help him with this. What was a JNA? Where did it come from? Why is it there? How do you make it go away other than cutting it out? Because that was conventional medicine's answer. We don't know why, but we know how to cut it out. So, I looked into these different things and I knew he was going for a second surgery. I didn't want that healing process to go as long as it did before. So I started implementing, different things to prepare him for going into that second surgery. And not only that, but I really got spiritual along that path and connecting to source energy and bringing that into my family and my lifestyle and teaching some of my children about that. But not only that, but just my own personal energy changed, tapping into that source energy and bringing that to him. And I firmly believe that having that energy around my children, and especially my oldest son going into that surgery, had a positive effect on the outcome of that surgery. And his surgery went smooth. And I set my intent for that surgery too. I really focused my energy on how that was going to go and did not waver from the outcome that I desired for that. And I think that played a huge role in the outcome. And as a matter of fact, not to go too deep into the subject, but the walking up to the operating room doors, they allowed me to go right up with him on the stretcher before he went into the OR, and I could see the Panera Bread outside. And so I knew where he was in the building. So I said my goodbye, and he was all loopy on, narcotics before his surgery. So he waved by. I went outside and I sat by the Panera Bread, and I just envisioned how that surgery was going to go in my mind and played it out that I was, in the subconscious space, in the unconscious space with my son as that surgery was happening, and how that tumor was just going to release out of his body and come out 100%. And I was there with the medical team and their energy and just feeding them positive energy as I could from there. And when I was done with my meditation, so to speak, I rode my mountain bike over to, I think it's Washington Park in Albany, beautiful park. And I just did some meditation in the sun, did some Qigong and exercised a little bit. And my phone rang, and it was the surgeon, and it was 4 hours later. And he verbatim told me exactly how the surgery went, just like I had envisioned in my mind outside of the window. And it was just, I'm getting all choked up here just talking about it. And it was just power of the subconscious mind right there, and being able to implement that into my life. So knowing what I know about nutrition and diet and good energy, I brought that to him. I declined the meal plans that they had there in the hospital, because I don't know how anybody can get well with the food that they serve out of those kitchens. I just, in conventional medicine, I'm appalled at what they bring to people. The break room had a drawer full of sugar packets in there, like thousands of sugar packets. Like, this shouldn't even be in the recovery part of a hospital. And so I declined all the food. I brought him all the healthy food that I could bring, pureed vegetables and fruit and bone broth and things that are going to help his body heal. And we were able to leave the hospital in 3 days. And 2 weeks later, he was back riding his dirt bike, functioning like a normal 16-year-old kid. And follow-up MRIs, no issues, no problems. So, it's a testament to, not only natural health and healing modalities, but, power of intent as well. And that's energy right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hear so many people who have no idea about like everything that you just talked about, right? Say things like, "Oh, I knew that was going to happen," or like, "Yeah, I could have told you that was going to happen." Like, it's, I just had a feeling it was going to happen. Right. And what people don't realize is like, that's not a coincidence. That was your energy bringing about that specific occurrence, that action, that event, because you were obsessing over it. You thought that was how it was going to go. And most people go to that negative mindset. Right. And it is, I was choking up and getting teary eyed. You could see me, the listeners maybe couldn't, but as you're telling me that story, because it is so incredibly powerful when you're able to hold space for a surgeon, for your child. I mean, and thinking about kind of where you were 30 years prior to that, maybe, right? Like a 20-year-old electrician, to think that you would have come all that way and all of those things would have happened to get you to that point where you would be that dad sitting outside of the Panera and being able to do that for your son, right? Like everything happened in sequence for that to be. And like, who knows what the outcome would have been if you were just a dad that was like, well, I hope this goes right. And it, like, we are able to take so much into our own hands, I think. And so many people don't realize how much power we truly have when our energy is perfectly aligned. And I think that's what you're so passionate about bringing your clients.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. And it comes down to, where is your attention, right? You get where your attention is at. And that's the key. So, like you said, people focus on the negative, and that is our natural default. That's the amygdala. That's the reptilian part of our brain, keeping us from getting eaten by the saber-toothed tiger. We're always looking for the negative. We're always looking for the danger. And if we can just get away from that program in our subconscious and hold our attention on the positive, and that's why people don't get what they want in life, is because they are so focused on the negative. It really helped me put boundaries up once I realized this strategy, to be able to, determine, I mentioned John Lee Dumas, and he ends every podcast with, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you're spending the most time with people that are always focused on the negative, then, you're going to absorb that energy. So I had to put up boundaries in my life, and, not so much cut people out of my life, but just spend less time around that negative energy and be the positive influence for my children, especially going through a divorce. I needed it to be about them. I needed to model who I wanted them to be if they ever went through that situation. And that's what I do with my clients too, is I model, positivity and leadership, and meet them where they are and lead them down the path to where they want to be. And it's really easy to get there. And we use things like, the power of intent and subconscious reprogramming and things like that, to get them to where they want to be. And the clients that have already done that work, it's a walk in the park. It's a breeze to get them there. And the clients that haven't, takes a little bit longer. But, and I think that's what sets me apart, from the average person or doctor or whoever. And not that I'm comparing myself, but, I try to only compare myself to who I used to be. And that's what sets me apart from that negative person that I used to be. It's funny. I see, when I'm on social media and Facebook, and it pops up with a post that, oh, you shared this 9 years ago or 10 years ago. And I look at it, I'm like, who was that person? And it totally different from who I am today. And it's thanks to the work that I've done internally on myself.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So I would love for you to share with the listeners, is this something that you kind of do initially with clients? Are you of the belief, we've had lots of people, on here, and I'm kind of one of those where, like, the energy then allows you to go into things like the quantitative stuff, like labs and, the protocols and all of that? Or do you kind of meet the client where they're at? What's your initial kind of, assessment type of and steps like with clients?
Well, I'm very upfront about the process of, that I've learned in IHP right up front in the complimentary consultation process, that, here's the journey, here's the steps. We like to take a timestamp with the ideal client, the timestamp of exactly where you are. So let's run some labs. Let's do some labs to see exactly where your body is before we do anything. And then we're going to work through some protocols. And when your labs come back, we're going to see what you need, and we're going to work on that, and we're going to get you healed. And then it's usually the part where we ask about, if there was one thing, what would the one thing be? Or what are your struggles, first of all, so they can read the shopping list of struggles that they're, going through, and then focus on that one thing. But I want to say that a gift that I was given, and I realized not that long ago, is that I don't have to do much for a client to talk to me and give me exactly what I need. At some point in the conversation, in a mere 15-minute conversation, the client tells me, unknowing to them, exactly what I need to work on to help them get to where they want to be. And it's somehow that just comes out of them with me. And the one thing I hear over and over again with, with clients or friends or just somebody that I run into, is that, like, they'll say, I just met you and I can't believe I'm telling you this, and blah, 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 blah. They'll tell me something. And, usually that is what I need to lead them in the direction that they need to go. And step one on what to work with that particular client, family member, friend, new person that I met on the street or whatever. I love striking up conversations with people and just getting to know people, because we're all, people just want to, no matter who they are, they just want to be loved, supported, seen, and heard. And in any business, whether you're a health coach or a chiropractor or a nurse or, a counselor, whoever, or just a friend trying to be a good person. If you can give that to somebody, if you can help them feel loved and supported and seen and especially heard, that if you put that combination together, you have a friend or a client for life, because they don't get that anywhere, really. Like, think of how often that somebody gets that package, that combination from their doctor in a 15-minute visit, or from a counselor that just. And not to knock counselors, because cognitive behavioral therapy is phenomenal and was certainly a huge part of making our family separation go as smooth as it did. That was amazing. But just that combination of love, giving love and support, and helping people be seen and heard is just an amazing tool to use in any practice.
Yes. Well, because the reason why they find themselves telling you stuff that they can't believe they're telling you is because they feel safe enough to do that, because they can feel the energy that they will be seen, loved, and heard. Right. And so when we feel that from somebody else, we immediately can let our guard down of like that perfection or that control, or, I'm fine. I'll just like hold it together. And someone can kind of allow themselves to be exactly who they are. And that allows you to then work and kind of get them to where they need to go. I think that is what sets so many good practitioners apart, because, and I've said this line before in podcasts previously, Dr. Cabral used to always say early on in my practice, like, no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And I had personal training clients that kept coming back. 10 years of personal training clients. I wasn't the best personal trainer in the world. I was a good personal trainer, but I wasn't the best. But they kept coming back because I truly cared about them. Like, they shared their life. I knew more about them than some of my own friends. And when someone feels connected and able to be supported, like you said, loved, seen, and heard, it's something that is so rare in 2022 modern day society, as sad as it is, that it feels like a place where like you can just collapse and be what you need to be. And I think one of the greatest gifts that you can give anybody who needs to heal, even if they don't know that they need to heal, right? Or they don't know what they need, they just know they need something, allowing them to come to that place where they feel that safety is, because then their central nervous system immediately reacts differently. And now they can receive, protocols and do well with all of that.
Absolutely. And that really comes down to why I chose the name that I did for my virtual wellness practice, Love Energy Wellness. The love part of it is like, love is one of the strongest energies in the universe, right? And the body only has two modes. It's either got growth mode or it's got survival mode. And if it's in survival mode, you're in fear mode. And if you're in fear mode, you're activating the sympathetic nervous system, the adrenals are revved up, and your body is not in a healing mode. But when alternative or opposite of the fear-based mode is love. So if the body's in love, with itself, with its cells, with its composition, that is positive, pure positive source energy right there. And there's nothing more powerful than that. So that's really when people feel loved, that's when the healing begins, and it changes their physiology, right? If somebody's in fear, their physiology is in survival mode. The cells are not thriving. They're trying to protect themselves. But if they're feeling love, if they're, in love with themselves, and that's one of the most important things is self-love. If somebody is in the position where they don't like themselves, or they hate themselves, or, they're afraid to look inside, they're afraid to ask themselves the right questions. The analogy I love is they're afraid to light a match in a dark room because they're afraid of what they're going to see, right? Mm-hmm. But if you can bring that out of somebody and let them know that, it's okay to be where you are exactly where you need to be at this very moment. And I know that's cliche, and we hear it all the time in meditations and things, but it is so true, because if you can be at peace with where you are at this very moment, then that's where the healing begins right there. That is the transition and the transformation. And then again, it's all downhill from there. And then the energy part of Love Energy Wellness, everything is energy, right? Think of just our voices here, whether it's a podcast or on YouTube, if people are watching, that is energy going out into the airwaves, coming through on Wi-Fi, and that is coming up on the screen or an audio through speakers, and that is sound waves going through the air. What is that? That's energy. And then our ears are interpreting that energy into this audio or into the video that you see. Our eyes are making that interpretation. That is all pure energy. So everything, if you take, even if you go outside and you pick up a rock and you put that under the most powerful microscope that's out there, you're going to see the rock, and then you're going to see molecules. And then in those molecules, you're going to see atoms. And then in those atoms, you're going to see a nucleus with protons, electrons, neutrons, all circulating around. And that dense rock is actually vacant space right there. That is energy with, the nucleus. And then you get the electron cloud way, way out there. And if you would scale that down, that would be like a bowling ball, and then 100,000 miles away, something the size of a pea, and in between it is space. But when you go outside and you pick that up, it's a dense rock that you could, throw through glass and break it or something. So everything that we have is energy. And it really comes down to focusing your attention on the positive energy for wellness. And that's what I put together for our name. So what's in a name, right?
Yeah, I love that. Well, because it almost allows, before a client even meets with you, they're able to kind of know what some of your, initial, what you think is most important when it comes to wellness, and it's love and it's energy. And yeah, you're right. I see so many people who are just angry with their current state of health, or they identify so heavily with their, dis-ease or whatnot. And they're kind of so set out of that place of self-love and gratitude and acceptance that it's really hard to move them from that place until they can get to the point where, okay, like I'm doing this because I love myself, not because I'm so disgusted with myself and that this is where I'm at, but because this is what I truly deserve. And my love is what kind of has brought me here. So yeah, I couldn't agree more.
It comes down to identity and who do they want to be, right? Dr. Cabral did the episode on Be Do Get and the lessons that I learned from other people, and it's been said for a long, long time, but Be Do Have was the model that I was taught. And before you can have something, most people work from have, do, be. They say, oh, before I can have something, then if I had this, I could do that and then be this, right? And that's the model most people work from. But if you just become the person that you want to be and start doing the things that person you want to be does, then you will have those things. And that is that be, do, have model. And it's an amazing model to work from. And so it comes down to the identity of the person. And this is where NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, comes in, is what's the identity of your client? What are they holding as their identity in themselves? And then helping them to change that identity. And that's where subconscious reprogramming really comes in. And hypnosis is really a big part of that. And, if hypnosis scares some people, then just call it meditation, because it's really the same thing. And it's habituating something to reprogram the identity that you hold for yourself. And when you can do that, then you start to become that person that you want to be, whether it's a healthy person, whether it's an entrepreneur, whether it's a good parent, or whether it's, whatever the case may be. Maybe you want to be a pilot or something. But if you start, being that person and envisioning yourself as that person, then you will become that person eventually. It's just how the law of attraction works. And you have to do it with feeling. Because if you're just lying to yourself, saying that you're, wealthy, then it's never going to happen. But if you have prosperity consciousness, then you will certainly become healthy, because you're feeling that and you're putting that energy out there. That's like, what is a feeling? It's an emotion. What's an emotion? It's energy. It's energy in motion. And that's really what it comes down to. So if you change your story, you can change your life. If you change your energy, you can change your life. And it really, it comes down to the identity of the person. And I mentioned, my struggles with alcohol in my 30s and 40s, pretty much since I was a teenager. And I knew that I was not doing good things for my body. And I knew in my mind, and I said, someday I will be a non-drinker. And I just kept saying that to myself. And eventually today I am that non-drinker. And that's, I didn't have to go through any programs, any 12-step programs. And not that doesn't help people. I'm grateful for those programs helping people. But the downside to that is the identity aspect of that. What do those people hold as an identity? They hold that, that identity that they are a drinker for life. And that's why they relapse, or that's why they struggle. So changing the identity is foundational for anything in life, whether it's, eliminating alcohol from your life, or junk food, or, being healthy, or, there's cases of spontaneous remission where, tumors and cancer and things like that are just, they disappear from the body. And it comes down to love, and it comes down to identity. One of the greatest stories of that is Anita Moriani in Dying to Be Me is the book. And it's an amazing story of hers on how she had a near-death experience and came back feeling that love from wherever she was, and that source energy beyond brought that back. And, a body that was riddled with stage 4 lymphoma just disappeared. And now she's, telling her story out there on the stage on how she did it. So it comes down to love. It's a powerful thing.
Yes. Yeah. And again, like the identity, and just my dad actually had a very, like his brother, but his best friend, he was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, which is incredibly hard to come back from. And when I found out, because I know him well enough, I thought, like, he's going to beat this. The doctors are calling him like a miracle, but I knew just by simply his demeanor, the way he's lived his life, the gentleness, like in his soul, I just knew, like, he was like, oh no, this isn't how that's going to end. Like, no, I'm meant to be retired to, he just moved to Florida. Like I'm that this is just not how the end of the story is going to go. And it wasn't like he just was convinced. And yeah, the tumor was gone, and like, they were like, we have no idea how this happened, but there's so many instances where people just refuse to identify with that one specific thing that could hold them back for the rest of their lives, or even, cross them over into another life, that they have a complete 360. No,
sure.
So powerful.
And how powerful is that for somebody like him to not listen to that authority figure with the white lab coat on that says, hey, sir, you have pancreatic cancer and you have 6 months to live. You need to get your affairs in order. Most people would believe into that. And that's where it comes down to the belief system and the identity. So again, neuro-linguistic programming, it's foundational. There's something that's called the logical level, and it's your environment is at the foundation. And then your behaviors are above that, and your skills are above that, and your beliefs are above that, and then your identity above that. And at the top of the triangle, you have source energy. And it's really how you can transition from something like, stage 4 to being a healthy, retired individual, because you held that identity and you didn't listen to that authority figure that most people look at and say, doctor says this is how it is, so this is how it is,
Right. Yeah. And just take those marching orders. Yeah. So powerful. So I'm sure there's lots of people listening wanting to hear more. So can you tell us about kind of places that you show up, whether it's, social media accounts, websites, programs, anything that you kind of have going on where people can connect or learn more?
Absolutely. I'd love to. Thank you. So loveenergywellness.com is our URL. You can find the website over there and see what we got going on. It's a brand new website that came out beautifully. And we're working on building out some programs over there. So just bear with us if there's work in progress going on. It's under construction, as we say. And I'm on all the social media platforms, mainly Instagram. But we have a Facebook page. We have a Facebook support group that we're there. And of course, on TikTok and all the other, LinkedIn, all the platforms. So, you can check us out anywhere. Instagram's really where we do most of our work. And of course, the website.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much for being on the Integrative Health Coach Success Podcast. It was such a pleasure. I think we, again, brought so much valuable information to our listeners, whether they were coaches or just health listeners in general. And I appreciate you being so open with your story.
Oh, thank you. Can I share a couple of things for anybody listening that helped me on my journey that maybe would help other people?
Yes, please do.
Oh, thank you so much. So, a lot of the lessons and, shifts in my mind that I have learned came from a person called Jim Fortin, Fortin. He's got an amazing podcast called Transform Your Life from the Inside Out. And his higher level program is what I went through. I'm actually still in it. It's a 14-week program, and this is my third round in it because it's like an onion. You just keep peeling back the layers and you get to the core of who you are. So that's called the Transformational Coaching Program, and it's amazing, life-changing for me. And that's really what launched me into the ability to enroll into IHP and become a certified IHP coach. If it wasn't for TCP, I would not be a level 2 certified IHP. So I thank Jim Fortin for that. And one of the best tips that I could give anybody is that in order to save yourself time, money, and stress, one of the best decisions that I ever made was finding a virtual assistant for myself, especially transitioning between full-time construction employee, being a full-time parent of 3 kids, being a full-time entrepreneur, going through the IHP program and all these other coaching programs. I couldn't do it all. So I needed somebody to help me with the back end stuff. And shout out to Sarah over at the Integrative Health VA.com. She's just amazing over there doing the back end work for everything that you're going to see on social media and the updates on the website. She's amazing. So shout out to Sarah over there.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, it's so important. You're doing what you're best at, which is, meeting a client with, the intentions of love and energy and all of that, that if you were wasting your energy doing all of the other back end stuff, right? It's just kind of stuff that you're not, you're not as able to be present with your clients. And so it's so important to outsource the stuff that somebody else can be good at and do well, so you can be busy changing lives.
It's it's a process that I learned from Michael Hyatt, I believe. It's eliminate, automate, and delegate. You focus the 80-20% rule, right? Focus on 20% of the things that are going to get you 80% of the results. So that's the elimination part. And then automate anything that you can automate in your business or in your life so that you can set it and forget it and not have to deal with it except for maintenance. That is enormous. And then delegate. And that's where the VA comes in. I want to focus on 2 things, Julia. I want to focus on my skill set, right? Stacking my skills so that I can help more people. And I want to focus on helping people. Those are the only 2 things I want to do. And then the rest I will delegate to other people as finances allow.
Yes. Great. Yeah. Great tips. Thank you so much for sharing those. Thanks again for being a guest on the Integrative Health Coach Success podcast. It was such a pleasure. And I look forward to the next time we can connect.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. I'll come back anytime. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jeffrey.
Thank you.